thank you so much for being here.
Oh, my pleasure.
I am so excited. We are at the 2026 SHOT Show. I'm here with Julie Golob. I have wanted to interview for so long.
So sweet.
It took me a lot of courage to reach
Oh,
out.
no.
I bought your books, and I even gifted your firearms book for children and parents to become educated on the matter to my sister and her husband 2 Christmases ago. And I remember saying, I'm going to have her on my podcast one day, but I have to read her books first. I have to be prepared. So I remember just kind of being in this panic, but I'm so honored to be sitting here with you today. You are someone that has not just accomplished so much in this industry, but you've done it across the span of the firearms industry as it has grown. You know, I got to jump in what I think is a pretty lovely time compared to how things maybe were a bit ago. I would think, you know, we were sitting down last night at dinner talking about like SHOT Show babes and how different. I didn't know that existed, and all these crazy concepts that I didn't have to concern myself with because I came in, I think, at a pretty good time. I don't know. And I'm excited to hear about your life story and how it has been affected by the changes in the industry and how it's developed. But before we get started, I would love for you to introduce yourself to the listeners, if you don't mind.
Well, my pleasure. My name is Julie Golob. I'm a professional competition shooter and consultant, author, veteran, and just love shooting and sharing shooting with so many people. So it's a pleasure to be here. Finally to meet you. I'm a huge fan myself.
Thank you.
And
Thank you so much. I love that. And what an introduction. I like how you did that, you know, professional shooter, veteran, no biggie. I like how you move your head. Like, I love that. That's wonderful. What an introduction. That's wonderful. Okay. Well, how old were you when you got into firearm shooting? If you don't mind me asking, I'd love to start at the beginning.
So I was a daddy's girl growing up. I never got along with my older sister and my younger brother. So I just hung out with my dad. He was always at the range.
Okay.
So 7, 8 years old, I was picking up brass and paste and targets and all of that. And we became this dad-daughter team that worked matches as range officers. And I remember going to some of the first major competitions at our local club and seeing the likes of Kay Michalik and Rob Latham and Jerry Michalik and just saying, wow, I want to do that someday. I want to be that person. And so I started shooting at 14 and I just jumped right straight into competition. And by the time I was a junior in high school, I was recruited chief flare shoot. So,
Oh my goodness.
it's a neat thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And how many, I know kind of taking the woman angle is such it's an interesting trope, but it's one of my favorite things to bring up and discuss because it's so impressive nowadays, but even more so then. How many women were in that program with you? I'm sure
I was the only female on the action shooting team. And there were probably, 10 to 20 in the entire Orly Martin unit.
Really?
Definitely. And even in the shooting sports back then, I was the only young girl on the range. And now, my goodness, you see dads and daughters, moms and daughters, girlfriends taking their kids to the range. Yes, it's such a different experience. And it's such a great experience.
Absolutely.
In the beginning, it was a lot of, old dudes just hanging out and not necessarily not welcoming you, but they didn't know how to deal with it.
Sure.
And I feel like that has been what the industry has been like as more and more women become involved. But when you look at it, there have been so many great leaders, female leaders in this industry that just do the quiet work. Yeah, executives, people working, with different roles within their companies. It's neat to see people like you now coming up and telling these stories and recognizing the talent that's been going on for 30, 40 years. It's what I get.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And I love that you've set the tone for women in the industry. So when I started in the industry, I had to think about what I wanted my tone to be, who I wanted my audience to be. And I'm so thankful that I had the right mentors to lead me to do that so that I could represent myself well, set myself up for success long term. And don't get me wrong, I had a few, missteps in the beginning. I had a few things, right? I had to come back from that a bit.
Yeah.
How did you navigate that, being someone who didn't have a large group of women mentors, from what it sounds like, just because of the lack of female representation? What was it like to navigate that alone? And what did you learn?
So I think the biggest plus for me was actually the military experience. So because you have so much regimented, honor, duty, everything built into everything that you are, that it carried over. That professionalism helped me to take that into the industry afterwards. You could only wear certain clothes. You had a uniform. You had to express yourself a certain way. It was very specific, even more so than it is today. Right. When you look at, the Army's social media today, it's crazy, right? Oh my gosh. I actually know what you're talking about. But back then, the only media that we really had was television, some radio. Okay. And then you had magazines. And so you had to look a very specific way and carry yourself a specific way for interviews. And I think that really helped me establish who I needed to be, that regimented structure and that level of professionalism that I just kept and maintained, even when what I saw around me wasn't necessarily the same. It was definitely not like the military jumping into the firearms industry. Right. So I feel like that was a big advantage for me.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And for women getting their start today, which looks very different than even when I started 2 years ago, what would you recommend to them?
It's along the same lines of what you said. You have to decide who you want to be. And there's a lot of temptations. There's so many opportunities that it can be, you can have this FOMO, right? You can feel like, oh no, I need to do everything right now. But if you stay true to who you are, think of the person you want to be 10 years from now and figure out where you want to go. That's really helpful. If you're a competition shooter, that goal is going to look like, oh, I want to be a J.V. Williams. I want to be a Lena Michalik. Yes. And if you are someone who maybe wants to be in the gunsmithing world, right, your path is going to look different. And it may change along the way. That's okay. But if you have an idea of who you are and who you want to be and stay true to that, and always trust your gut.
I love that.
Doesn't feel right. It never is.
Yes.
Never.
Yes. I got chills. That is like the theme of 2026. I've now just started saying, all right, gut check to my friends, and they know they're keyed in to they already know they probably need to tell me I'm right? Because if my gut is going off, they're kind of alarm bells, those alarm bells just need to kind of be validated. But I've been able to, like I said, build that structure of women to give me that gut check. Do you have any resources that you would point women to nowadays, like any pillars in the industry besides yourself, as far as like how to navigate maybe getting into instruction, getting into competition shooting, or any of the kind of more popular niches that people tend to be attracted to?
I think that it's almost good to look outside of just women. I think that you can learn from anybody, right? And how they carry themselves. You've got the bro tactic guy part of this industry that are off. They're awesome guys. But if that doesn't fit your niche, it doesn't make any sense, right? So I think that you can look to other industries and look at those examples and try to apply it to, again, who that person you want to be. Right. So, I could name so many influential women within, names that you would know that work in companies. Yes. To the people that you see on social media. Right. But at the end of the day, you're going to connect with someone. Right. You're going to feel that connection. Right. And understand that, what your goals are may not be the same as what you're seeing out there.
Absolutely.
Just try it, just venture forth. It doesn't have to be so regimented. That's the beauty. There's so much opportunity.
Yes.
That it's really neat.
Absolutely. And I'd like to go back to something you said earlier when it's like you want to try everything and you almost feel it's easy to want to try everything and almost feel rushed to do it. And I would say that that's what happened to me in 2025. In 2026, I feel like is the year I have this giant whiteboard in my office and I draw all these circles of like all these different things I'm doing. And I've tried to figure out how they're complementing each other and like what the true, mission is at the core, and try to figure out like who I am still, which I don't think is something we ever know exactly. I think in being in flux is very normal there. Oh, sorry, I thought that was my camera. I was like, uh-oh, that's not a good sound. Okay, sorry. You're good. I'm sorry. No, you're fine. Oh, okay, that's so funny. Okay, that's so funny. Okay, I got it. Okay, what would you say to someone who is trying to navigate, wanting to be the competition shooter, the concealed carrier, the maybe the model for a certain brand, and really trying to pour herself into the industry while navigating something like a family? That's something that you've done. And it's actually a very selfish of me to ask this because I would like to know that. I would like to be a mother one day. I would like to, be a wife and like have this vision of frolicking in a field and like a dress and not having social media.
That doesn't happen.
No. Okay. I was about to say that's not going to happen, but like, like just deleting all of that and just doing this. So how do you navigate those two worlds together?
I think that, one of the things that I never understood, I never had a plan to be a mom. I was going to be running around the world, shooting all the time, racking up titles. And then when I did, everything changed for me. What they call it hormones, they call it whatever.
Yes.
It just changed and your perspective changes. The challenge is to balance that family with all of the other things that you want to do and have realistic goals. I think when you're young and the world is open to you, you have everything, every opportunity is there. It's so hard to say no. But when you have that motherhood challenge, you learn to say no. But sometimes it's the wrong no. So I feel like from one of the things that my husband and I firmly believe in, family is always first.
Yeah.
And if that means you got to take a couple years off, you got to take a couple years off.
Right.
Because that's the way it is.
Absolutely.
And it's very, very personal. It's a very personal journey, but it can be done. And when you always deliver, when you say you're going to deliver and how you're going to deliver, people will expect and respect that.
Absolutely.
It totally can be done.
I love that. I've heard that when you take a break, the industry will be here for you.
Yes.
Which I love. I read this article. I grew up doing violin competitively. I still play violin. And I read this article about this famous violinist who took 2 months off of his career, which was an insane amount of time for this man. He had played since he was a child. I mean, if you start when you're 3 or 4, you usually start with a box, like an actual cardboard box that you learn how to hold the violin properly. You learn proper posture, you even learn the wrist motion. This man talked about how he went from playing every single day to not touching his violin for a few months, and how it introduced this perspective he never got to have, this appreciation for it. And when he came back, he played more beautifully, he played less rigidly. All these amazing things came from it. And it's always it's almost like music can't be music without the pauses. And it's given me an appreciation for when we need breaks to sit back and gain perspective. I'd love to know for you in those times where you had to take those breaks, choose family, choose yourself. What did you learn in that time? And what were you maybe surprised with when you returned? Would you put it?
The first time I became a mom, it was very frustrating because your body changes. You want all of the things and you worry that, again, the world is passing you by and you're not going to be relevant anymore. But I think that the biggest lesson that I had to learn was grace for myself.
Right.
And understanding that you can't be all the things to everyone, but you do need to be the number one thing to one person in your partner.
Right.
So that was a hard lesson. And the fact that nothing is ever the same from a physical standpoint, and you have all of these expectations from the past. That's hard. Right. And there are plenty of women who've, managed to do amazing things after being moms or being pregnant while they're doing those things.
Right.
But it's a very personal journey, just like everybody's birth story is a personal thing.
Yes.
And so that grace factor is very, very challenging. And it comes with maturity too. I became a mom in my 30s. So it's just that timing. And, whether you become a mom at 25 or 45, it's just different. But I do think that the beauty of our industry, unlike many others where women thrive, is that it's so family oriented at its heart in this freedom sense, in this foundational sense, that people rejoice when you do achieve motherhood. Yes. And so that's the neat thing, right?
I love that. I am, this is not something I plan to say, but I'll say it. I am Gen Z. I'm one of the good ones, so fear not.
Yes.
It is not as rewarded nowadays. I feel like in this generation, which is so sad to me. And it's almost felt a little bit more, that's at least the perspective I've gained. Yeah. I don't know that is how everyone feels about it, but talk to some of my friends that are around the same age, and it's almost seen as like, wow, like you're going to be super behind. And it's like, my friends who do have children, they're overjoyed. And like, I see them as like, whoa, you're starting this whole chapter that like, I'm not even ready for as an adult. And I actually didn't even expect to talk about this today. So I love this. I love this part of podcasting. You can go any direction. And I'm excited to give that perspective to the industry through my followers. And I hate to call it followers, but people who just give me their time, I hope I can bring a positive narrative with that. And I even talked to my partner about how I'd like to use my platform to talk about like motherhood and balancing firearms and protection of my kids because I come from the world of combatives and self-defense and primarily kind of competition shoot for fun, which is really hard to say to you because it was whole career. But I really appreciate this perspective. Thank you for being so vulnerable and sharing that. That's a very personal aspect. So thank you. I know it will help so many women listening who maybe are having some of those same feelings of anticipatory anxiety getting into that side and chapter of their life. So
it's so hard because there's always a number, right? For me, it was the number of titles. Now that number is followers or views, or there's always a number attached to it, very tangible. And when you're chasing a goal, it doesn't feel that way, right? You're not going to go out there and like, I need 1 million subscribers on YouTube. Right. You hope for that, right? But that's not your main drive, right? Your main goal is to connect with people and to share the message. Or in my case, when, I first started, it was like, I want to win that first nationals. I want to get that first world championship. And so there's a number associated with that. But women are such feelers. We look in systems. We think about how we're going to project ourselves to the world. Yet it has nothing to do with a number. Right. And so it's very hard to balance those things because the second you start saying, I've won X number of this, or I have this many, it comes across as arrogance and being just not genuine, right? That becomes your focus of what people think that you're about. It's like, oh, these are my stats.
Right.
So really, there's so much more to you.
Absolutely. And that's something I love about being a podcast host. Especially someone like you who's been on numerous podcasts and channels and shows. Oh my gosh. You have told your story over and over again, your timeline, your, how you got your start. And, I feel so thankful to have this perspective of like motherhood and family. I think that's so lovely.
It's very unique.
Okay, good. I'm so glad. Again, I didn't really think we were going to go here. I'd love to just see what happens. So it's so fun. This episode of She Shield is brought to you by Right to Bear. You've probably heard me say that self-defense is more than simply carrying a firearm. It's awareness, avoidance, and preparation for anything that is to come your way. And that's why I'm partnering with Right to Bear. They stand by defenders like you and me. You'll receive benefits like expert witness support, psychological care, gun replacement, and even protection for other lawful self-defense tools like pepper spray, knives, and even your hands and feet if you have to use them in a struggle. What sets Right to Bear apart is that they are dedicated to education and immediate legal response. In case you do ever have to protect yourself, you have access to a 24/7 attorney-answered emergency hotline so that you are never alone. What I love most, though, has to be the personal connection that Right to Bear will have with you as a member. For example, Frank, the president of Right to Bear, will give you a personal phone call when he hears about a claim being filed. That level of care in the industry is extremely rare. If you carry, train, and believe in thinking ahead to protect yourself and your family, consider getting a membership with Right to Bear. If you use my code FIT4FIA10, you will get 10% off your membership, and the link to access this and to learn more is located in the show notes of this episode, which are the notes below the title. Protecting yourself and your family should not leave you defenseless afterwards. Stay safe and stay vigilant with Right to Bear. Sometimes after an episode, I'll be like, why did I ask that? I'm like, you know what? It's my podcast. I can do it. It's fine. So, but I've loved this. Okay. So I would love to know, what are your goals for this year, 2026? Not numbers. If you don't want to share that, of course, just what are your goals in this industry as a whole? And even if you have separate niches between, competition shooting, concealed carry, women's empowerment, however you want to go into that.
For me, my entire journey in firearms has been based around the thing that I'm interested in at the moment, or the goal that I have. So for my teens to, 30s, it was all about wins. Yeah. Now it's about communicating what matters to women. And I feel like there's so much opportunity for that. I have a daughter that's about to go to college. I have a daughter that's going to be a teenager. So my light looks completely different from so many other women in this space. Right. So for me, what I like to share is that time in my life. In not too long, I'm going to be an empty nester. And that is a critical time for a lot of women to get involved in shooting sports. Yes. To try a new thing that they never thought they would. Yes. I love that you inspire women your age to do this thing, right? But there's an older generation that has been like, no, I'm not going to do that. I have my life, my career. And then all of a sudden they have time. And so I'm going to be approaching that very soon. And I feel like you can get so caught up in the goals and the numbers and the stats and the way you need to plan your life, but sometimes you just got to free will it.
Yes.
And so for me, I feel that practical concealed carry is something that women my age and older struggle with, because maybe they don't have the same fashion concerns and same interests, and maybe their goals are different as far as who they're protecting.
Right.
So there's a lot of that in my life. So I have a book in the works, which is good. Always exciting. I don't know when, and that's when I say freewheel. I mean, I don't have a set published.
Yeah.
I'm just great at when it's ready. It's right.
Exactly.
And so the author, that'll be fun.
How exciting.
Still competing sound, which is okay. Yeah, I have one shooting goal I had not attained, so I gotta kind of knock that off before I retire. I don't know if I ever.
Absolutely. I was about to say, is it retiring if you're just going to keep writing books and empowering people? I mean, yeah. When you go to church and feel like the pastor is talking directly to you, right? I feel like this is one of those moments, because I actually recently had a break in podcasting because I didn't feel like I was producing enough. I didn't feel like I had enough people like listening and retaining, and I was focused on the numbers, and it drove me away from my initial goal, which I'm now getting back to. And every time I'm in an interview, especially this one, I feel that like, oh my gosh, this is why I'm doing this. Yes, let's go. And I think it's so lovely that your focus is mission focused. I'm going to say that twice because it's I feel like necessary here, and not numbers focused. And that's so big coming from you, someone who does have so many titles and so many numbers. I appreciate you saying that because it's so different than someone like me saying that. Although I recently made like first place in C class at the Louisiana Theater Classic. So I'm not trying to, or it might have been second place. I don't. It's one of the two. I have a wooden placard.
Yes.
It's so funny. I have it in my like closet where my dry fire stuff is to remind me that if I want to do better than that, I need to start dry firing. So, which I have. So that's good. But I really appreciate that perspective. Man, there's so many things I want to go to from there. Wow.
Let me just say one thing.
Please. Yes.
So I feel one of the biggest disappointments from the shooting sports is not celebrating the classification system. Because someone like you you got your plaque, right? That's fantastic. And perhaps the average person would feel reluctant in sharing that because they're going to see JJ Rakaza do a .2 reload on a blah, 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 and Ax Michelle do this, right?
Yes.
And they're so worried about what people will think from that.
Right.
And so I feel that the way the shooting sports thrive is to celebrate everybody's personal victory, however that is. Yeah, whether you only ever make C class or you go all the way up to GM. I feel like we need to do a better job of raising people up who do that because you met a goal and you're excited about it. It's in your dry fire closet, right?
That's a good point. I really love that. I appreciate that so much. Yes, I need to do that. I was once told that like A class is the black belt of shooting as like a kind of standard when it comes to, in class GM. That's where you get into like kind of more specialty training. And then, you're the 1% and whatnot. And so in my head, I'm like, A class is the standard. C class is 2 below that. So it's all about framework. But if you think about it, I'm above the average, like average meaning I believe D class is like 50% and above. Can you remind me? Do you know something like that?
Been a long time, but yes.
I just know Lena was like, hey, you're above this like 60% or something of the average. Like you're doing great. Like keep going kind of thing. And that was really important for me, especially because I started with the concealed carry and all of that in mind. I don't know how much of my story you know, but in just a flash, I came from martial arts, striking and grappling, broke my nose 5 times, had 2 nose surgeries. Thank you so much. My surgeon did a great job, and he should have because I paid him a lot of money. He made me pinky promise that I wouldn't get fully hit in the face again. Fully. So I'm definitely going to hit sits. But I bought a gun just thinking it would be a talisman, something to ward off evil. And it's not that at all. It's actually this chunk of metal that's not very intuitive, but you actually kind of need training on. Exactly. And then you have to learn how to strap it onto your person in a functional way. So anyway, I love, love, love that perspective. It comes down to framework, what your goals are. Before I forget, because I have a bit of ADD, I would love to ask you, what is the biggest difference with the age group you mentioned compared to mine when it comes to methods of conceal carry and the drive behind wanting to conceal carry?
I think a lot of it is just the overwhelming amount of information out there that's not simplified. And unfortunately, just because you take a concealed carry class or get certified, and so that you have your license, there's a lot of bad information in that too.
Yeah.
And so it's so tailored to the lowest level that it doesn't give you a lot of information. And so I think the automatic default is purse carry, which, can work. It does work for many people, but I don't think that we do as women a good enough job of explaining the problems that can be associated with any type of carry, no matter what it is, right? If you're a free feeling bell bottom wearing person who's going to ankle carry, that's awesome.
Right.
You're going to have slow draw.
Yeah.
All of these things that you have to discuss that we think about that no guy is going to think about.
Right.
Because they just don't understand it. Right. And so I feel like one of the best things that we can do as women in the industry is communicate that on-body carry is ITAL.
Right.
And how we can get women comfortable with that.
Yes.
Because there are so many tools.
Yes.
And there are variations of, is a belly bag or a, fanny pack kind of thing.
Yes.
On body. And is it enough? Right.
Right.
And so there's all these gray areas.
Yes.
And so I think that what you do and what so many other women out there are doing is important, but you have to also understand from the audience perspective, people will look at that and say, I don't identify with that person. She's beautiful, she's young, but I'm not going to wear that. And so that's the challenge.
Yes, absolutely. Oh gosh, I love everything you just said. Okay. So couple things. It's interesting that you said it's not simplified enough. And then you mentioned the gray area, which to me, and this is not to say like you're contradict. No, my point is that's the most difficult part is that those two things almost contradict naturally. There's so much nuance, yet it's not simplified for people to understand. And so, gosh, I just got chills. That's so exciting. That is exactly what I feel like my mission is going into this. And I'm well aware I'm not going to resonate with certain age groups, especially because I promote, grappling and I promote like going to ECQC with Shivworks collectives. They're all like 5th degree black belts,
Right.
And so I totally understand. And I'm really excited to learn what I don't know. And this is really opening me up to that. I've recently gotten back into firearms instruction, and that is such a humbling experience. Not only do you have to not just repeat what you know for yourself, but you have to like learn and diagnose this person. And then you have to be willing to, I had a woman the other day, she uses the teacup grip. And she said, she got really flustered. She was like, I've always done teacup. And I said, well, what if I showed you how I do it? And then all I want you to do today is try both. And then if you leave today and you still want to do teacup, I will never bother you about that again. And I got to the point where I was like, I really should not let her do teacup in live fire. It's not safe with how, with the amount of strength she had. So in dry fire alone, she was like, oh my gosh, I can get both of my hands on this gun and like fully, I showed her the difference, and I pushed on the trigger guard and showed her what it would feel like to manage that recoil when we go to live fire. And thank God, when we got to live fire, she was like, I don't need to try teacup. And I was like, really? Okay, that sounds really great. Let's never do that again. And that sounds awesome. Positive reinforcement. And so that was really lovely. But it's so uncomfortable to have to like step out and think, well, that works for me, but how would they benefit from a slight shift or something?
Right. And you have to deal with that personality,
yeah.
Right? I feel one of the things that this older generation has that the younger generation doesn't realize is they have a bit of a spunk. they know what they like and
they
what
do.
they want.
I've hung out with the Girl and the Gun Women and Armed Women of America, and I'm like, wow, I'm not running the show here.
I know, and that's great. But you have to find a way to speak their language and say, all right, just try this, try that be, and yeah,
absolutely. My mom always says to me, I'm 27 years old. I still get my feelings hurt more than I should. I realize that.
Hasn't changed.
Oh, good. Good to know. Good to know. Lisa, we're screwed. So, I always call her and I'm like, tell me if I'm crazy. So-and-so said this. I thought it was just distasteful. I would never say that. How could people, my mom's like, just like give it 5-10 years and it will roll off of you. And I think that's what happens when I approach these women that are older. They don't mind being like, nope, that's not going to work for me immediately. And you're just like, oh crap. Okay. I have no loophole to jump through right now to get you to think about this. I have to be strategic and I have to kind of think in your shoes. I almost said feet. Shoes. Anyway, I say a lot of sayings wrong. Like we'll burn that bridge when we get there and things like that.
Yeah.
It's my favorite though. Okay. Lovely. Well, okay. Question for you. What has your trajectory been like as a firearms instructor? If you don't mind me asking, like when did you start and what does it look like now for you?
Sure. So military again.
Yeah.
You had to become instructor qualified and do all of that. So worked with a lot of elite units, Rangers. And then when I got out of the military, I never really, I ran a few classes and then I also worked with Lena's mom, Tay, with the ladies' action shooting camps in the beginning. Babes and Bullets, and it became Babes and Bullets.
Oh my
so that was because Deb was one of our first students that became that.
Here. Sorry, I should know that before this. I apologize.
No, they were a great time. And then again, motherhood, you have to learn to say no. So I'll bring a student out and do one-on-one or I'll teach via video, but I don't have the capacity to teach classes at this point in my life.
Totally understandable.
I feel like that training business is so challenging because again, you've got to deal with the demand of people who want to come to you and then you still have to recruit people to come to you.
Yeah.
And it's a totally different business model than influencing or, being a part of the media or even running a booth.
Right. That's total. Absolutely. And in the beginning, when you're growing as an instructor, you're everything. You're the marketing coordinator or just the marketing person, director, the instructor, director, the event coordinator, you're everything. So it's very hard to jump in if you don't have the support of a range or something like that or a team. Yeah. So for people looking into instructing nowadays, I'm so excited to ask you this. There are very few standards. To call this an industry is to say there are standards, very few standards. What would you recommend for someone new to I've decided I'd like to instruct firearms. I'm going to go to X course or do X, process. Do you have anything in mind that you would give them?
I think, one of the best ways to learn your own teaching style is to go to as many classes as you can. And it not to steal material, right? So to experience how other people do things. And you'll find that some people are credible. Some people are not. Right. And some people will walk away from the same class that you did and they're like, that was the best thing ever. And you're like, no, I didn't get that right.
Right.
But exposing yourself to different types of instructors, different types of curriculum.
Yes.
Stepping outside, go to a competition class, go to a concealed carry class, do all of the things.
Love that.
And be clear with that instructor, like, hey, I'm here to learn. I'm not here to steal your material.
Absolutely.
But I'm going to say this, there's nothing new under the sun. I mean, the things that people are teaching today is you crack open a book from the 30s and read about it.
Yes.
And it's just how we portray that and how we connect with that person. And so I feel like of all the things in the industry right now, this training business aspect is very tense.
Yes.
And competitive. Yes. Because people feel like, no, I've got to be identified as that. So no, there's lots of people who need to be trained, and will resonate with how you do it, whether because of your law enforcement background or your martial arts background, or just you're a woman who just runs concealed carry classes in Georgia somewhere.
Yes. Oh, I love that. As a medical school dropout, I love to work it in there. Lisa knows that. I had to shadow so many physicians. And I actually started shadowing in high school. I thought I wanted to be an orthodontist. And then I found out that orthodontists have a high suicide rate. And I was like, what is that about? So I went and shadowed one and I totally figured it out. Did not think about orthodontics again after that shadowing day. In fact, I didn't even go back to my second day of shadowing. I was like, no, I'm good. I never want to do that. That looked awful. I'm so sorry. No shame to an orthodontist. If you're listening, I'm so sorry.
It's a specific job for a specific person.
Yeah, I love the way that you articulated that. Yes, ma'am. So then I went on to college and shadowed doctors in pretty much, gosh, as many fields as I could. Some places you can't shadow. And I feel like that perspective gave me what I needed to now succeed and feel like see the benefit with going and viewing other instructors. And I try to encourage, I have a friend who's getting into firearms instruction for the first time. And I have this like desire to like bear hug her and be like, let me tell you something. He's like, this is what you need to know, you know, but I know she has to learn. And she watched one of my classes and I was so nervous. And I thought, well, in every single class I teach, no matter what level it is, I always go through verbal de-escalation, ask, tell, make. We do some simulations and we build up the intensity all the way to where I have people yelling at each other to get back and arcing and moving around so we're not backing into a corner. And I taught a class the other day. It was a former Navy SEAL man, probably 6'4", very built dude. In fact, I almost asked him if he'd model for me for some of the marketing I do because this man was just very built. And I went over to him and I was like, hey, why are you in my class? Why are you here? You know, just curious. And he was like, I want to learn how you instruct. Like, I found your YouTube channel. I thought it'd be really interesting. And that was the coolest answer I've ever heard.
Kudos to him.
Yes. So kudos to him. When we went and actually shot, it was really nice. I was able to like give him some more difficult drills and everything. And that's been a really inspiring moment for me because he was like, I'd never considered giving verbals to someone. I'm like, right. If we only give them a class where we're just learning to draw and shoot, and then we also like pull the trigger every single time, we're working in muscle memory and drilling that. So I just said a lot of things to say, I agree. And that's been a big theme in my life and one I recommend to as many people as I can. So thank you for reinforcing that and sharing your perspective. And yeah, gosh, I love that so much. I need to check the time really quick. So yes. Ooh, very nice. Very nice. We'll have a natural pause here. I'm making a big arm motion for my editor. Brendan. Okay. He's awesome. So, before we wrap today, is there anything that you feel excited to talk about that we didn't get to cover in particular?
Gosh, we talked about so many neat things.
We did, didn't we?
You know, and I feel like unique things.
Yeah.
I mean, I could sit here and talk about guns, gear, and shooting sports and all that stuff until we're blue in the face. But I feel like having honest, real conversations with women is super cool.
Yes, absolutely.
This has been so much fun.
I'm so glad. Thank you so much. Yes, and thank you for it is, asking people to find a booth and then to come and sit down and interview them. Like, come find me so you can be on my show. Like, it's such a selfish venture. So thank you so much for taking the trek here. I'm sure you did not just, spawn in the middle of the 10,000,
I have a cot over there. No.
Oh, that's just so funny. I love it. It's hilarious. Oh gosh, I wish. I would sleep here if I could. But yes, thank you so much for this conversation. It's been transcendent for me. I know I'm going to listen back and think, well, why didn't you ask about this? Dang it. But this is only part one. What if we do this every show? It's just keep letting down together.
Start it off.
Absolutely. Yes. I cannot wait to read your next book. That is so exciting. I will link all of your books in the show notes, which are the notes below the title. I say that like I'm not talking directly to camera. And your book on, this is something I want to talk about. Yes. Your book on prepping children and parents before we go. It is so wonderful that you have that. I have no kids. I grew up the youngest. Kids make me feel awkward kind of thing. Still, I'm working on it. With that said, is that a book that, to this day, you feel like you would recommend to all parents around that have no idea where to start with that conversation? And wonderful. Will you say just anything you'd like about that? I'd love to promote that because there are truly no others. Like, yes.
So there are lots of resources out there. And you've got Project Child Safe, you've got Henrietta Eagle, you've got a lot of other authors in the space. For me, I wrote Toys, Tools, Guns, and Rules for my children because my husband's law enforcement, I'm a professional shooter, they were going to encounter firearms, right? But I wanted it in a way that somebody who could go on Amazon is like, oh, my son just decided to make, a finger gun and he's 3. What do I do? And have that conversation, even if you don't have firearms at home. And so that's the goal of it. And it's done very, very well. It's, for me, the biggest, I'm going to brag a little bit because I never brag about myself.
Do it. I'm ready.
I had a children's hospital in Texas, and they've got over 15,000 copies just to give away in both the Spanish and English as a freebie, as a parent.
I love that.
Yes, that's what it's about for me. I know, having the conversation about firearm safety in a way that doesn't portray it with animals.
Yeah.
It's a house. It's a real conversation.
Yes.
Give parents the tools they need to have that, and then take the next steps there.
I love that.
Come to this industry to figure out all the ways to safe store firearms.
Right.
Maybe start a shooting sport.
Yes.
Whatever it is. Or maybe never own a gun. And
Right.
it's okay.
Yes.
Not everybody's supposed to do that.
Absolutely. And if you see a firearm at your friend's house, the part of that book, that part in the book I super appreciate. It's just because you don't have firearms in your home doesn't mean that your buddies, or your child's kid. What am I trying to say?
They make
Your child's friend will not have firearms in their house. Yes, absolutely. So thank you for doing that. Is that service for the world? Because it's and I love that it's on Amazon. I was able to get it in before Christmas for my sister and her husband a year ago, and they love it. So that's awesome.
Oh, I'm glad to hear that. Absolutely.
Yes. Thank you, Julie. It's so much for being on this podcast. I have to say this, and I'm excited too, because I appreciate them so much. While you're not associated with them, this is on the She Shield side only. We are sponsored in this episode by Right to Bear. And I will do a little blurb on them later when you're not having to be here. Brendan will work that in somewhere where it's natural. He's probably going to be like, that wasn't natural at all.
Hi, check him out.
Check him out. Check him out. Yay. Okay, perfect. Thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate you.
My pleasure.
Alrighty, yay, beautiful. And I will put all of your information in the show notes so that you didn't have to say